Anyway, I'm going to be talking about working with big partners, and I'm kind of curious how many here are currently working with a bigger partner, so clearly bigger company than yourself, either IP or publisher or something. Okay, there's a few there, yeah. Okay, that's cool. How many of you are aspiring in the future or are looking for a deal with a bigger, like a partner? Okay, yeah, nice. All right, here we go. These are my slides. So, I'm going to talk about working with big partners the PlayRaven way. So, this is of course our experience. Your mileage may vary. About myself, to get started, my name is Lasse Seppanen. I've been working on games for almost 20 years now. My first game commercially released was in 2000, and it won a Nokia Global Award, so first prize in one of their competitions. And then 2003, I had the opportunity to work with the guys who would later found Supercell, so Ilkka, Mikko, Lassi, and so on. And that studio was called Sumea, which was acquired by Trip Hawkins, the founder of EA, in 2004. And we were rebranded Digital Chocolate. And Digital Chocolate is probably a name that many of you recognize here. But I left that company then in 2005 because I was offered an opportunity to work on the AAA, and I just couldn't resist. So I became the executive producer for Alan Wake at Remedy Entertainment, and spent 6 years there, shipped Alan Wake's American Nightmare, and then wanted to get back into mobile because there was such interesting things now happening there. And my experience in the past career working with big partners was first at Sumea Digital Chocolate, where we were making quite a few pre-installed games for Nokia, so games that were already on the phones when they when they were bought in the store. Excuse me. And of course, at Remedy, we were working with Microsoft for 5 years on Alan Wake. So big, huge partner, 10 time zones away. And now with PlayRaven, you may be familiar with us from the past. We've been around for almost 5 years now. So founded in 2013. We're based, of course, here in Helsinki, Finland. We have a AAA/mobile background, as you may have gotten from my sort of intro here. So Remedy, Rockstar, basically is the AAA side. There's also a person from Ubisoft and so on. Then Digital Chocolate, Wuga, Rovio, and so on the mobile side. We are completely focused on free-to-play mobile. We have released 3 games. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. But the last bit here is quite important. We always aspire to be a category creator. Kind of like, think of the soda market before Coca-Cola. When Coca-Cola entered, it became a whole new thing that has its own shelf and its own category, and it was imitated by others. So that's the dream. And every game we launch has some way of attempting to create a new category. If we look at the games that we have released globally, so our first game in 2014 was quite the learning experience, to be honest, because it was our first game, fresh into this space. We took a lot of like board game elements, made a fully single-player, replayable, algorithmically generated game, and the category creation part was the theme. So we wanted to create a spy game to kickstart a whole like category of spy games, because there are like not really spy games on the market, and yet it is very popular in the movies, TV series, books, and so on as a theme. However, that game didn't do so well initially. We hit top 5 strategy in more than 100 countries, but huge learning experience, single player fully, and so on. We incorporated a lot of those learnings into the next 2 titles, which did considerably better. So Robocide, where we introduced a whole new mechanic, very addictive. We already knew when we launched the game that this is an addictive thing. This swarm where you're moving these little robots with your finger. So that was something unique that no other game on the market really had. And it did really well. For the first time, we hit #1 strategy in the US, 41 other countries, #1, and top 5 in more than 100 countries. We also released Winter State last year, which was our attempt to look what could we bring from PC real-time strategy to this platform. And it's super high fidelity. If you have a chance, maybe you can look at some of the videos online and so on. But then that game was quite demanding, long sessions and so on. Okay, so that's the past portfolio. When we had launched all these games and we had hit like top 5 repeatedly, 3 times in the top 5, but then had difficulty sustaining that success because of 2 reasons. We had to go back to the drawing board, think about what we're doing. Why are we getting all this initial success but then not being able to sustain it for a long time? And what we identified was really 2 reasons. One is the UA cost. It is extremely difficult to penetrate this market unless you have some means of lowering the UA cost. Because just acquiring one user can cost, you know, $6, $8, even $10. The other reason was we felt we were still, even though the second wave of games was much more leaning towards multiplayer, we still had quite significant single-player elements in those games. And that's something we felt that's really not working. When we are looking at the data, it's great for a day, but it will not keep you in the game for 30 days or 60 days or 90 days, at least in this, in this genre where we are. So what we defined about a year ago was a new strategy. We want to stay true to the category creation mission. That's important for us. It's our passion, but also we feel it's a solid business idea. If you can create that new thing, like Pokemon Go did, be the first one up there, you can hit it really big, and others will follow and try to imitate you and create a whole new category. But then the second point is really important. We decided to scratch all that single-player stuff and just focus on multiplayer and go all in. So MMO and social. All the games released from now on will be multiplayer in a big way. We have some experiments still also on the social side, but mostly we're leaning towards the MMOs. And the third point, quite the big shift in terms of how we operate. Partnering with bigger companies and adopting external IP where it makes sense. This is for the UA side of things. So to reduce that cost of UA, to make it more easier to penetrate that market, we wanted to start partnering up. And this is really what I wanted to talk about. I mean, it's a very, very substantial change. If you have made one of those deals, it takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of this. Just have to go around, meet with people, shake a lot of hands, and when I say a lot of hands, I mean a lot of hands. Yeah. I can't remember how many times I've been at the airport this year. It's way too many. And I'm flying again on Thursday, and next week, and the week after. But, you know, c'est la vie. This is how business operates. And of course, getting from BizDev, you know, shaking hands is a good start, but you need a few other things as well. So you need to first identify the prospects who might be willing to work with you, of course. Which companies are like good targets to show your stuff, to talk about ideas, talk about brands and so on. We have a list of about 20 companies right now that we're actively talking to. Pitch is very important. Now, when you go into that meeting, you got to be very concise, very clear, have a really strong idea that you present. And of course, preferably you already understand a little bit what they are thinking and what would, you know, get them excited as well. Business cases. This is something that we didn't put enough effort into previously, but now that we're working with external partners, we really wanted to improve this area as well. And I'm going to show a little like internal tool that we built. It's coming up real soon. And of course, on the development side, if you're just working in development, there's a big shift towards being more like determined and planned. You make better project plans, and you have mitigation plans for the risks and so on, rather than just going with the seat of the pants. Well, I hope nobody's really doing that. And contracts, when everything's agreed, basically, you shook hands and, you kind of know the deal you want to make. Making that damn contract, it takes so much time. It can take 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, even 6 months. So you got to be ahead of the game in your business development. You got to be already doing business development for stuff that you want to sign maybe 6 months from now. And that's what we are doing constantly. And of course, eventually you get to start one of your projects. And this is one of the things we signed with our new strategy. I wanted to talk about the business case specifically, and I don't have much time, so I want to be quite concise, just picking this one example, because it's quite like a big thing for us internally. So we built this in-house forecast model. Earlier this year, we acquired access to App Annie data, so we can see the revenues, the retention data, and so on. And we've been building our own stuff that is connected to App Annie, so we can use the API and get the data automatically from App Annie. And we have this little Google sheet which we're trying to make as usable as possible internally. So it goes step by step. You choose your genre, you insert your estimated early retention parameters, you define your superfan goals and so on. We have 7 things we always expect from every game we have. And this is our sort of philosophy codified into a tool that automates it and that anybody in the company can fiddle around with. But of course, it's most important for the leads and myself and the business and leadership. And here's another example from the tool. So this is your projected retention curve once you have selected your stuff. There's also like a gray curve that shows you the benchmark from App Annie. So it takes the top 100 top grossing games and creates a retention curve based on those parameters you chose. And there's a little bit of magic behind it, so I'm not going to go into that. And here's another example, another curve. It looks pretty similar, but this one is your day 30 retention and the ARPDAU, because these are dependent on each other. So if your retention goes down, you have to increase the ARPDAU. You have to make more money per user if you're losing more users. Or other way around. If you can increase your retention, then your ARPDAU can go down. You can afford it, or you can afford to have a lower ARPDAU game. Let's put it that way. Of course, we don't want to lower our ARPDAU. And the last thing here kind of shows the 7 points we have. And it's still work in progress. There's a few things that are sort of not applicable yet, but we are pretty close to getting all these boxes ticked. So I'm just going to read it because you probably can't see it all the way there. But first one is long-term retention. Second one is proven monetization. Third is superfans. Fourth is small scope and fast iteration, which we feel is important for our process to produce good stuff. Number 5 is quick engagement and UX. 6 is gameplay, and 7 is built-in marketing. So there's something attractive in the game or the theme, or maybe there's an IP or something. But this model has been very helpful in sort of solidifying our thinking and going into those meetings with partners, having already a strong idea about what are the performance metrics we're looking for, not just fluffy, we want to make a good game, but rather we want to hit this ARPDAU and that retention and so on. Okay, I want to leave some time for questions, so I'm going to talk about the results next. We've been doing this for almost a year now. I can happily say that we have really stayed true to our mission. We're still on a mission to discover the next big thing in mobile. That's really what we want to do, a category. We have been working with external IP. That's a new thing in this company. Of course, many of us have done it before. We have a guy who worked on Star Wars before and so on. But for us, it's a new thing. And what do you get from an IP, from a developer perspective? You get a universe, which means backstory, the overall look and feel, style, assets. Maybe you can use the same assets they already have. Maybe it's a game, or maybe it's a movie or something. But quite surprisingly, we discovered that there's way more creative freedom than we expected as well. So we can take these assets as a starting point but then really apply and take the style into a different direction. Because quite a few partners understand that mobile is a different world where different things work. For instance, in terms of color palettes. So you might not be able to bring something that is super dark and like gloomy into mobile without doing a little bit of tweaking and making it, well, first of all, usable on a glossy screen, but also attractive to the audience, which might be a little bit different than in the other media where that IP is appearing. And I would say that so far, the typical project for us has been a well-defined sandbox, kind of the contract and all that, but then having creative control ourselves. Not having to go through this like a massive approval loop, fortunately, which was of course a little bit like a concern that are we going to have to approve, get approvals for everything? No, it's been super relaxed so far. I think the last point here, also killing your darlings. It's as developers, I was a designer when I started. It's so easy to get excited about something that, oh, that's such a cool feature. We just have to have it in there. But when you're working with an external partner, you have an established universe, you have a timeline and so on. It's far easier to kill those things that are non-essential rather than start diverging into something that is not really at the heart of the game. Make the heart of the game great, and then maybe we can add that thing later as an update. Some more like internal results. I would say that we're way faster concepting now, because we have to go into meetings all the time. So we just, we can come up with new concepts in just 2 days or so, with a nice presentation attached to it. Way better communication, of course, because we got to communicate all the time, and all that handshaking improves your talking skills. Well, maybe. Better project planning, better business case definition. Already talked about that stuff. The last thing I wanted to share with you is what are we actually working on right now. So we have 2 big things going on. Unfortunately, I was hoping I could announce something here. That's why I picked this topic. But we're still under NDA. Yeah, don't tell anybody. Yeah, but maybe next time. Maybe next time. But we're working on 2 big things here. And the third one, I would say, is a little bit like a passion project, maybe, because we know that Robocide was super addictive. So we're still exploring for ways to take that mechanic from Robocide and make a sequel or maybe a variant or spin-off that uses the same mechanic that everybody knows is addictive, but make it fully multiplayer, like real-time PvP. And that's what we're exploring right now as a small sidetrack. Then, where's the next big thing? I think everybody would love to know that. But from our perspective, we just have to look into multiple directions and look at what's next in this space. And these are some of the examples we are putting active R&D into. So Spatial OS from Improbable, super exciting MMO technology, especially on mobile. I don't want to go into technical detail there. But then augmented reality, it's a challenging thing. Pokemon Go did it one way, but we are looking into, what other things could you do with augmented reality in this space. Let's see. And then blockchain. There's so much talk about blockchain now. I went to DICE conference in Portugal last week, and everybody was talking about blockchains. So it's way more than just currencies. And especially for MMOs, quite an interesting topic, in terms of owning your virtual items, being able to trade them and outside the game and so on. But of course, those are R&D things. We are looking into those things, trying out stuff, doing prototypes, testing, technical tests, just brainstorming and so on. But we haven't really committed to these things as like a big project. That's all I had. 19 minutes. So, thanks.
Excellent, thank you very much. Okay, we have time for just one question. I know the audience is overwhelmed with questions today. This is the natural Finnish exuberance. Okay, anybody got a question for? Oh, come on, help me out. I'll ask you something because I'm interesting. So, you've got that internal tool there, and is that something you're ever thinking of? Maybe the Finnish are very sharey. Is that something you're maybe thinking of ever licensing out or sharing with other studios?
It's a possibility, yeah. Of course, I mean, we're big on sharing. Of course, we got to be careful if there's anything proprietary, like, you know, the App Annie data access is something that we can't share.
Very generous. They don't mind sharing all their data. It's fine.
Yeah, it's quite strict with App Annie.
Fair enough. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Big round of applause, please, for Lasse. Fabulous.
Thank you.
See you later on.